Is China sneaking military personnel into the United States via southern border? Let's look at the latest headlines. You're watching ESN, IC News. Congratulations, that's a wise decision. Let's go to the first article here from Newsweek and take a quick look. The Republican chair of the House Homeland Security Committee has said that it was very likely that military personnel were being inserted into the United States by China by crossing the southern land border. Announcing an investigation of the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, over his role in the border crisis, Mark Green, a former U.S. Army serviceman and representative for Tennessee, claimed many of the Chinese nationals entering America were military-age men, many of them having known ties to the ruling Chinese Communist Party and People's Liberation Army. This information comes after Melissa Dalton, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Homeland Defense, told the House Armed Services Committee in March that China, along with Russia, was now posing more dangerous challenges to the safety and security of the U.S. homeland. Both Dalton and Green cited the incident in February in which a Chinese spy balloon, which Beijing claims was a wayward weather balloon, passed over the continental U.S. before being shot down and recovered off the coast of South Carolina, is a sign of the new threat. During a press conference, Green noted, "There's been a massive surge in Chinese nationals crossing the southern border, claiming many of whom are military-age men, many with known ties to the PLA, ties to the CCP." So let's look at the statistics on this. First, I want to go to the New York Post. Chinese nationals crossing into U.S. from Mexico border reach new high, sparking national security concerns. I'm glad I'm not the only one, because it seemed like I was the only one thinking this in my head. I'm glad others are talking about this, especially those with much more important connections to the security of the nation. Well, we all have important roles to play. From the New York Post, the number of Chinese migrants entering the U.S. at the southern border has reached a record high, sparking national security concerns over possible spies. Customs and Border Protection officials apprehended 24,048 Chinese citizens at the border with Mexico over the 2023 fiscal year, which ended in September. That's over 12 times the 1,970 arrests in the previous fiscal year. Also, let's add to that, that's more than 7,000%, over a 7,000% increase from 2021, when just 323 Chinese nationals crossed the border during strict pandemic travel bans. The trend further highlights how migrants worldwide are aware of the disastrous controls of the U.S. border. This also increases fears of a possible Chinese network of spies that could be sneaking in while hiding with regular migrants. Now, obviously, we're built on a land of immigration, the land of the free, home of the brave. I get it, and that's awesome, and you gotta love it, and I think that's amazing, and let's hope that everyone that crosses the border has our best intentions at heart, and the nation's. And let's also be aware and keep our eyes open and our ears, our eyes and ears open here, because this is a big number. This is a huge influx, especially when I explain to you how expensive it is to get over here, just the flights, the travel times, and then how much it costs to get smuggled across the border according to the news. These are mainstream news articles that I'm going to share with you. All this information is publicly available via mainstream news as well as local news networks. So let's go back to this. Clearly, the border is a big opportunity. Rebecca Grant, a national security analyst at IRIS Independent Research, recently told Newsweek. Some of the people want to come here and have a better way of life. But I think some of those Chinese nationals quite possibly are here to spy and report back at a minimum, she warned. In fact, Grant said she is 99% certain that at least a little bit of this is the Chinese military infiltrating for reasons harmful to our national security. Is it one person? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? We don't know. But the fact that we have to ask this question is outrageous, she told the outlet. It is outrageous, especially if we consider the timing. Let's consider the timing of not only the political spectrum, but the economic spectrum, the turmoil in the Middle East, the turmoil with China and Taiwan, Russia and Ukraine. It's a tinderbox. And with the elections coming up, if, worst case scenario, things get worse, imagine how much intel could be sent back to home base if you have a network of spies that came in. It's very simple to think about that. So let's just look at some of these statistics again. Let's go back to, this is what makes it even more interesting to me. Next article, San Diego, NBC San Diego, Channel 7. Chinese migrants pay higher fee to be smuggled into the U.S. Chinese migrants are paying human traffickers significantly more to cross the border. The photos are jaw-dropping. Hands peeking out of a washing machine, another person squirreled inside furniture. They're from a U.S. Customs and Border Patrol bust at the San Ysidro port of entry last week, in which federal agents found 11 Chinese nationals hiding inside furniture and appliances packed in a moving truck. As hard as it is to imagine contorting your body to hide inside a washing machine, what's really incredible is how much human smugglers are getting paid to move people across the border. Now listen to this. Criminal defense attorney Mark Carlos said Chinese migrants are paying human traffickers significantly more to cross the border. Here's a quote. "I've been doing this a long time," Carlos said, "and I have not seen the prices that high for crossing the border." Carlos said prices of smuggling Chinese migrants have skyrocketed, with average payments ranging from $40,000 to $60,000. Wow. In comparison, the going rate for smuggling Latinos through the San Ysidro crossing is $6,000 to $10,000, according to Carlos. So they're paying $40,000 to $60,000, folks. So not only are they paying $40,000 to $60,000 on average if they're being smuggled over the border, they have to fly over, which takes about 28 and a half hours on average if you take the most popular route. But guess what? That's into Mexico. And if you want to cross into America the way that most smugglers do, you're not going to go in through Mexico. You're actually going to go in through Ecuador. Listen to this. The popular route to the U.S. is through Ecuador, which has no visa requirements for Chinese nationals. Migrants for China join Latin America, there to trek north through the once impenetrable Darien and across several Central American countries before reaching the U.S. border. That's AP News. And then let's go to the next article. How many vacant homes does China have right now? Yahoo Finance. A former statistics official has an eye-opening prediction. Fortune, read all about it. While the U.S. is facing a housing shortage and affordability crisis that has Gen Zers questioning whether they'll be able to achieve the idolized white picket fence American dream, China is in the middle of a very different kind of housing nightmare. Years of debt-fueled overbuilding have left the country with rows and rows of empty homes, as well as almost entirely vacant ghost cities. And now, a former government official says the number of empty residences is so big that a country of 1.4 billion people is struggling to fill them. Now, reports vary on how many vacant homes there are. He Kang, the former deputy head of China's Statistics Bureau, said at an event in the southern industrial city of Dongguan over the weekend, Reuters first reported, each expert gives a very different number, with the most extreme believing the current number of vacant homes are enough for 3 billion people. That estimate might be a bit much, but 1.4 billion people probably can't fill them, he added, referencing the current estimate for China's entire population. While estimates for the number of vacant homes and apartments in China vary widely, experts believe a range between 65 to 80 million units is reasonable. Kang seems to be indicating That's just not the full iceberg. It isn't just a cyclical correction. So they've got millions and millions and millions of vacant homes. They've got ghost cities practically, folks. They've got entire cities that are practically vacant. Percentages of occupancy very low. And somehow we have an influx of people coming illegally through the border, mind you, that are being arrested. They're arriving in Ecuador, taking this perilous journey through South America, through Mexico, to the border. And if they get arrested, think of all that information they can then send back. There was a statistic here a moment ago that said something about 100,000 people. Yep, here it is. The New York Times. Growing numbers of Chinese migrants are crossing the southern border. Of the 1.3 million people in the United States with final orders to be deported, about 100,000 are Chinese, according to administration. This is the New York Times. More than 24,000 Chinese citizens have been apprehended crossing into the U.S. from Mexico in the past year. That is more than the preceding 10 years combined. Jeez. They typically fly into Ecuador because they don't need a visa, like hundreds of thousands of other migrants from Central and South America and more distant locations. They pay smugglers to guide their travel through the dangerous jungle, through Colombia and Panama, en route to the U.S. Once there, they turn themselves into the border officials, and many seek asylum. Most succeed. In turn, fueling further attempts, Chinese citizens are more successful than people from other countries with their asylum claims in immigration court. And those who are not end up staying anyway because China usually will not take them back. Interesting. So somehow there's all these vacant homes that were built up over there and the market's in turmoil, but people have enough money to fly over to Ecuador. So what's the average cost? I was looking up the average cost to fly to Mexico from China, and on average it's about $3,300, give or take, and it takes about 28 and a half hours. That's the average with the most popular route. Average round trip is $3,332. City or customers prefer to fly to Mexico City, and the most popular route is from PVG Shanghai Pudong International Airport to MEX Benito Juarez International Airport. So $3,300 for that. And then let's say you get it on the cheap. It's only $40,000 to have a coyote take you through the jungles. And then how much is it going to cost? Like, what additional expenses is there going to be? So let's say you're going to need $45,000 for this adventure. $45,000. Where do they come up with that money? I mean, that's wild. That's a lot of money. They've been saving for a while, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we better jump ship now. This is the time to go. Is that the case? Time's going to tell. Thank you for watching. Have a beautiful day. Hit the bell. Be well. Check back daily for new content. ESN IC News.